Hi students, welcome to the class Sutra study, course number BMN 601 at International University of the East. Okay. So I will introduce myself. Let me turn on the slide first. My name is Harmony Kim. I major in Buddhist study at University of the West for my doctoral degree. And my research topic was interdisciplinary approach between Buddhism and science. And I take early Theravada Buddhism for my doctoral research. And since this coronavirus outbreak, I cannot see my students face to face, but I can only meet through a voice, and then you will listen my online lecture. Hopefully this virus issue can settle down soon, but just in case, if it continues, maybe I will upload video record weekly base. And the title of this course is Sutra Studies. So first, I'm going to briefly go over the syllabus together. And then once I explain a syllabus, then you will have a first lecture today. So the course description based on an overview is provided of Buddhist Sutra or canonical text. And this Buddhist Sutra or canonical text probably based on the 5 Nikaya. So consideration is given to what is known of the historical context in which the Buddhist Sutra were formed and then written down. As I said just before, Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, Abhidhamma, and Visuddhimagga. Excuse me. And these Nikayas are reviewed in terms of the origin of the sutra, historical background of the birth of this sutra, and main point of the teachings, and approaches to meditation practice. These topics we will discuss. So the transmission of Buddhism outside the Indian continent by way of translation of the sutra also will be illuminated by early translator and scriptural interpretation. Once you take this course, you will gain knowledge of how the Buddhist canon is formed and preserved. By understanding the organization of the Pali canon, especially the Sutta Pitaka. And you will also examine the characteristic of each Nikaya of the Sutta Pitaka. You will understand the Buddhism, you will understand the Buddha's main point of the teaching from each Nikaya. And also you will know of early translators in China and the authenticity of Mahayana Sutra by discussing the scriptural interpretation and doctrinal distinction. This lecture will be held online video mainly, and I will put some reading assignment, and also sometimes I will upload handout. So students will read those materials as a reference point. All assignment, you have a homework assignment, such as a research report, and I will introduce in detail about that a little bit later, but when you submit assignment, please print, you have to type on computer, and then you must turn in on the due date to my email address. This is my Gmail personal email address. Please use this email address to communicate with me. You send question or message anytime, and I will do my best to respond within 24 or 48 hours. Based on your, okay, the evaluation, I will introduce evaluation first. So you will have 2 times of exam, midterm and final exam. The date, I assigned the date for midterm and final, but this schedule is tentative, and if necessary, this schedule is subject to change. In midterm and final exam, each exam will count for 30% out of your total grade, and then research report worth 40% out of your final grade. The topics I will announce later, but for example, maybe you will choose 1 or 2 sutra from Nikaya and read and understand them first. And early Buddhism transmit out of Indian continent. Upon Buddhism arrive on a new geological location, the Buddhism can be maintained in the same way, or maybe the interpretation of a Buddhist sutra might be a little bit modified. So you will investigate whether a certain sutra maintains Buddhist doctrine in the same way in different geological region. In other words, some Buddhist doctrine in India, you have this kind of a doctrine. But once Buddhism move to other region, whether those doctrines can be maintained, or maybe those doctrines modified and differently interpreted because of new area, new geological region has a different social value. So your paper starts with the summary of 1 or 2 sutra from Nikaya. And you will also collect other authors' argument from other literature. So you will addressing your pros and cons of other authors' argument. And then you will finally add your opinion to draw the conclusion. So this is example, but depending on students' response, I will provide several kinds of topics so you can choose your favorite one. I just say the example of a research report. And when you submit a research report, you will include a citation. Okay? Sometimes you put direct citation, sometimes indirect citation. In case of a direct citation, you just put the other person's description, put into quotation mark. And in case of indirect citation, you just take other person's opinion, but you rewrite them in your own word. Okay? So when you do direct or indirect citation, you have to keep these rules. If you do not keep these rules and then you just take other person's expression as like yours, that will be plagiarism. No plagiarism for your writing. You know about that. This is one of academic integrity code. Based on your work, I will provide a final grade. And the top, this top table shows determined by school. And I'm gonna, the bottom small table, this is, I'm gonna more divide in detail. So when students work pertaining to from 95 to 100%, that students will get A+. If some students' activity equal from 90 to 94%, that students will get A. For 85 to 89%, that students will get B+. 80 to 84%, B. It's the same way. I'm going to divide 10% into half. So just a 5% difference. Then students will get whether plus or just plain A or B, C, D grade. So below 60%, the students will get F grade. This is the overall schedule. Again, this schedule is tentative and is subject to change if necessary. Okay. When you look at based on this midterm exam, based on the midterm exam, the before midterm exam will be the first half of this course. During that time, you will study Sutta Pitaka. For example, the long discourse of the Buddha, Digha Nikaya, and Majjhima Nikaya, Samutta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, Abhidhamma, and Visuddhimagga. I will introduce several sutra belong to each Nikaya. And then you screen them, and then if you are interested in some sutra, you will choose those sutra for your research topic. After midterm, the rest part until the end of this term will be the second half of this course. During that time, you will study this course with the text Buddhist Sutra written by Kogen Mizuno. In midterm and final exam will be in the format of multiple choice question, short answer question, and maybe one or two questions you might need to write essay in middle length. But most questions will be multiple choice question. Okay? So maybe 50 to 60% of a question will be multiple choice question. 20 to 30% will be a short answer question. The rest, 10% might be a short essay question. And these texts you need to access to read. The long discourse of the Buddha, the translation of Digha Nikaya, translated by Maurice Walshy and Wisdom Publication. The middle length discourse of the Buddha, the translation of Majjhima Nikaya, translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi, also Wisdom Publication. The connected discourse of the Buddha, the translation of Samyutta Nikaya, also translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi. And the numerical discourse of the Buddha, translation of Anguttara Nikaya, also translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi. These texts you can easily access through internet. Okay? You can type translation of Digha Nikaya, and then they provide some electronic text. And then I encourage you to read some of Sutra or introduction to every Nikaya. And then during second half of this course, you will work with this text, the Buddhist Sutra, origin, development, and transmission by Kogen Mizuno. So I'm not sure whether you can access this book by internet, but if you cannot, I will upload a certain page and send to your email. Or I'm going to consult this with the school so that students can receive a reading assignment. But except that the rest Nikaya you can access to read the introduction of each Nikaya, or you can read some sutra from each Nikaya. Okay, this is overall about the syllabus. If you have any question based on syllabus, please do not hesitate to contact me. I provide my Gmail account, so you can send me email to ask questions, and I will respond to you within 24 to 48 hours. Okay. From now on, we will start to study Digha Nikaya. Tipitaka or Tripitaka. The Tipitaka is an extensive body of canonical Pali literature. The Buddha expounded his teachings for 45 years from the time of his enlightenment to his parinibbana. Parinibbana means his final day. Those teachings are enshrined in canonical Pali literature called Tipitaka or Tripitaka. The discourses of the Buddha cover a wide range of subjects and are made up of exposition and injunctions. Classification and systematization of the Buddha's teachings have been made to facilitate memorization because only verbal transmission was employed to pass on the teachings from generation to generation. In other words, 3 months after the Buddha's parinibbana, the great disciples convened and recited together all the Buddha's teachings and compiled them systematically and carefully classifying them under different heads into specialized sections, that is 3 divisions. So Tipitaka means 3 baskets or 3 separate divisions of the Buddha's teachings. What are those 3 divisions or 3 baskets? One is Vinaya Pitaka, second Suttanta Pitaka, third Abhidhamma Pitaka. Vinaya Pitaka is the division in which Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni monastics must follow the mode of conduct and restraint. Vinaya Pitaka is composed of the rules of discipline for Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni. Suttanta Pitaka is made up of general sermons delivered by the Buddha or one of his disciples on various topics. Abhidhamma Pitaka is more profound and abstract and deals with ultimate truth. And Abhidhamma Pitaka investigates mind and matter problem and the relationship between mind and matter. From Tripitaka, we will focus on Suttanta Pitaka for this course. Before we go into detail, let's think about the word Sutta, Suttanta, or Sutra. The literal meaning of Sutta is thread, like a string. And the Sanskrit form is Sutra. Suttanta is a synonym of Sutta. The word Sutra had been used in Brahmanism before the advent of Buddhism. The form and style of the Brahmanic sutras were adopted by Buddhism. And for this reason, in Buddhism, sutra meant teachings recorded in simple prose. But the meaning of this sutra expands. So today, sutra refers to all the sermons of the Buddha. Typically, a sutta means a discourse given by the Buddha or one of his leading disciples in the form of a verse or prose or even a narrative framework. Therefore, the best English translation for sutta might be a discourse or a collection of scriptures. But discourse is more prevailing term for sutra. Each sutta always introduced by the word, "Thus have I heard," from the fact that the Venerable Ananda recited the Buddha's teachings at the first council. Also, each sutta ends with the word, "Hearing the Buddha's sermon, the entire audience rejoiced greatly and believed and accepted the teachings." Or some sutra include the ending like this: the entire audience rejoiced greatly, accepted, and kept the word of the Buddha, to whom they paid their respect and then departed. It's a similar meaning. Okay? So when you are young, when your parents read fairy tale on your bed, the fairy tale always starts with "once upon a time," right? So, but in Buddhist sutra, it always begins, every sutra begins with "Thus have I heard." Thus have I heard. Because all disciples convene together at first council and then they recite the Buddha's teaching. That's why they start, "Thus have I heard." Also, most sutra end with "Hearing the Buddha's sermon, the entire audience rejoiced greatly and believed and accepted the teachings." This ending is a little bit different from sutra, but the beginning of a sutra, such as "Thus have I heard," that always occur in every sutra. So the word sutra or sutta continue to use, and you hear about Mahayana Sutra, which are normally much longer and more elaborate. And you will get into Mahayana Sutra in the second half of this term. So Mahayana Sutra also very well compiled, and then they also called Sutra because the Mahayana Sutra are regarded as an account of the Buddha's teaching. Sutta Pitaka, Suttanta Pitaka, is a collection of all the discourses delivered by the Buddha on various occasions. The discourses were mostly intended for the benefit of Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni for the practice of their pure life. Nevertheless, there are also several other discourses which deal with the material and moral progress of lay disciples. The Sutta Pitaka is further divided into 5 separate collections known as Nikaya. They are Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, and Khuddaka Nikaya. Today, you will study Digha Nikaya. Digha Nikaya is the long discourses of the Buddha. It is made up of 34 long discourse, 34 sutra. There are 34 sutra in Digha Nikaya. The length of each sutra is longer than the length of sutra in any other Nikaya. And Digha Nikaya further categorized into 3 divisions. First one is Silakkhanda Vagga. Second subdivision is Maha Vagga. Third subdivision is Patika Vagga. So some organization or systematization occur from Tipitaka, Suttanta, Pitaka, and in Sutta Pitaka further divide into 5 Nikaya, and then one of 5 Nikaya is Digha Nikaya, which you are studying now. And then this Digha Nikaya is going to further categorize in 3 subdivisions. One is Silakkhanda Vagga, second Maha Vagga, the third Patika Vagga. Silakkhanda Vagga is the division concerning morality. It contains 13 sutras which deal extensively with various types of morality, such that minor morality, middle morality, and major morality. Minor morality is regarding basic morality, which can applicable to everyone. Middle and major morality is more dealing with some practice held by samanas and brahmanas. Samanas, who are samanas and brahmanas? I will explain that a little bit later. But these samanas and brahmanas, they keep some wrong views. Therefore, their deed and their behaviors is not really correct to follow right path for enlightenment. Okay? Therefore, the Buddha tried to correct their wrong view from many discourses found in Silakkhanda Vagga. Okay, before we get into detail to each sutra of Silakkhanda Vagga, let's think about samanas and brahmanas. Who are they? Samanas and brahmanas, these 2 words compound can be translated to ascetic and brahmins, or leaders in religious life. And in order to understand the samanas and brahmanas, we need to go back to Indian history. So the religious situation in northern India around 500 BC, the Brahmins exercised a powerful priesthood. And Brahmins were educated in the Veda, and Brahmins knew mystic mantra, and they conduct bloody sacrifice. In addition to Brahmanas, another stream of religious life is called samanas. These samanas were called either recluse or wanderers, which implies to abandon the world to lead an ascetic life. So they were self-mortifier on one hand, and they wanderer on the other hand, But overall, their attitude, the pursuit for the detachment from family ties. Okay, so they come out of the family and then they pursue for ascetic life. Sometimes their severe practice are intended to achieve various paranormal powers. So there's two streams. One is called religious stream. One is called Brahmanas. The other religious stream was called Samanas. Let's look at them based on some historical background. So when you look at this Indus Valley region, there was Indus Valley civilization was developed during 2600 up to 1900 BCE. BCE means before Common Era, or it's the same meaning of BC, before Christ, same meaning of BCE, before Common Era. So very long time ago, there was some civilization exist in this Indus Valley, Indus River area. And then if you look at here, Harappa, whether I can, here is the city name Harappa, and the other city name is Mohenjo-daro. Okay? These cities, these two cities were noted for their urban planning and their brick house and some well systemized draining system and water supply system. Those systems well developed. It's really civilized. Therefore, the largest cities of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa in this area, about 30,000 and 60,000 people live there. But as time goes, then the gradual drying, the weather become dry, and then the water supply become reduced. This will cause the civilization decline and to make people scatter eastward. So people move to east side of India. And as you see, this is the well systematized of draining system in Indus Valley civilization. So you can see this baked brick house and also a well draining system. This is bath, B-A-T-H, bath, right? That means the water supply and drainage system were well developed and elaborated. Okay. So that area is actually currently is Pakistan these days. But long time ago, that was the region Indus Valley civilization were present. And then that civilization maintained up to 1900 BCE. But in 1600 BC, the northern India was invaded by white-skinned people called Aryans. Once Aryans invade this Indus Valley region, they divide society into hereditary classes. And then they bring caste system, especially by the people who called Brahmins. And then they divide society into 4 classes. That is, the first highest class is called Brahman. Second class, Kshatriya. Third class, Vaishya, the bottom class, were called Sudra. The first class, the highest class, Brahman, they called a Brahmin either way. They can call Brahman or Brahmin. They exercise powerful priesthood. They behave like a priest, and they behave like a leader in society. Brahmins were educated in Veda. This Brahmin knew the mystic mantra, and they conduct bloody sacrifice or religious ritual. But there were inhabitants before Aryans invade. So here, the inhabitant, there's some people already live, stay, and then have a maintained life before Aryans invade this region. So they were inhabitants before Aryans invaded and governed the northern India. And they had another stream of religious life called Samanas. Samanas were called either recluse or wanderers. As I said before, they intend to abandon the world to get into ascetic life. So they were a self-mortifier on one hand, and they were wanderer on the other hand. But overall, their attitude is pursuing for the detachment from family relationship. Sometimes their speculative view on the past and the future asserted their wrong view, and also their extreme and severe practices are intended to achieve various supernormal powers. So samanas can be called sramana. Also, this is a Sanskrit. Go back to Digha Nikaya, the first division, Silakkhanda Vagga. In Silakkhanda Vagga, several sutras provide the pragmatic guideline to make the Dhamma meaningful and applicable to daily life. The Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path lead to spiritual purification at 3 levels. First is Sila. Sila means moral purity through right conduct. Second level is Samadhi, purity of mind through concentration. The third level is Panya, knowledge, purity of insight through vipassana meditation. These 3 levels compose of Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path. So practice of Sila forms a most fundamental aspect of Buddhism. Sila consists of practice of right speech, right action, and right livelihood to transform oneself from impure words, deed, and thought. Okay. Also, in order to achieve Sila, the Buddhist lay disciple follow the 5 precepts by making a formal vow. Those 5 precepts are abstaining from killing, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from sexual misconduct, abstaining from telling lies, abstaining from alcoholic drink, drug, that big cloud the mind. There are 5 precepts, but in addition to 5 precepts, there are 8 precepts and there are 10 precepts. These 8 and 10 precepts depend on the individual and then stage of spiritual progress, Buddha suggests to follow 8 precepts or 10 precepts. Buddha suggests the followers, you take 8 precepts or 10 precepts, depending on the practitioner's spiritual progress. I just briefly introduce Noble Eightfold Path, which can be subcategorized into 3 levels, such as Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. And these Noble Eightfold Path will coming on and on and on, not only during Digha Nikaya, even in Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, you will have this Noble Eightfold Path again. And then maybe in next lecture, I more detail, summarize, and then provide a slide which hold the note about Noble Eightfold Path. But Silakkhanda Vagga is more emphasize the morality. In order to have morality successfully, you have to commit right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Once you carry on Sila, then that facilitates you move to the next level, such as Samadhi. Okay? So let's look at overall 13 suttas belong to Silakkhanda Vagga. First, Brahmajala Sutta. This sutta explains about Samanas and Brahmanas speculated the past or the future and asserted their wrong view in 62 ways. Samanas and Brahmanas, they have a strong pride in themselves. They think that their belief is the best one. But they heard that the Buddha fully enlightened. So Samanas or Brahmanas visit the Buddha and then they argue with Buddha in order to win over the Buddha. And from the dialogue with the Buddha, Buddha correct their wrong view, and then eventually they realize how their wrong view mislead their practice. So in Brahmajala Sutta, you can see Samanas and Brahmanas speculate the past or the future and asserted their wrong views in 62 ways. Those wrong views generate craving, craving followed by clinging, clinging to generate existence. This existence make run through karmic causal process and eventually give rise to rebirth. Kinds of chains of dependent origination. Therefore, the Buddha expound ways to transcend all these wrong views, not only merely morality, but also concentration and wisdom. So at the end of Sutta, the Samanas and Brahmanas admit the Buddha's suggestion, and then they switch their practice to follow to Buddha's teaching. And there's a Samanapala Sutta, also it's worthwhile to read about fruit of the homeless life. And then third sutta is Ambata Sutta. Also Ambata Sutta, the Buddha explained that the nobleness in man not originate from the birth, but from perfection in 3 categories of morality, such as, achieve in 3 categories of morality, achievement of 4 jhana, and accomplishment in 8 kinds of higher knowledge. So again, Samanas and Brahmanas, they have high pride in themselves and they think that they are noble people. And then the rest people are just inferior to them. But Buddha explained that the nobleness, if you are Brahman, you were born in Brahman family, therefore you are noble based on your birth. That is not correct idea. What the people make really noble people based on whether that people practice, that people cultivate morality, practice and achieve 4 jhana, and also accomplish 8 kinds of higher knowledge. Those people who follow morality, samadhi, and panya, those peoples are real noble people. Another sutta from Silakkhanda Vagga is Sonadanda Sutta. And also, the Buddha explained the meaning of the term morality and knowledge or wisdom in a way of 3 categories of morality, achievement of 4 jhana, and accomplishment of 8 kinds of higher knowledge. In order to carry on good morality, Buddha suggests take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, and take refuge in the Sangha. Also, follow the 5 precepts. 5 precepts I explained just before: abstaining from killing, abstaining from stealing, lying, or abstain from sexual misconduct, abstain from taking alcohol or a drug which make your mind cloud. And then also going first and leading the holy life. So it becomes established in morality, accomplished in 4 jhana, and also equipped with 8 kinds of higher knowledge, which results in the realization of extinction of a wrong view, such as, for example, bloody sacrifice. So far you see some consistency, such as morality, achievement of 4 jhana, accomplishment of 8 kinds of higher knowledge. And then that underlying doctrine come back in Suttanta Sutta. Suttanta asked the Buddha if there was any sacrifice which could be made with less trouble and bloodless. Before the Buddha enlightened, the Brahmins, they commit religious ritual and they commit sacrifice. For sacrification, they choose some living organism, sometimes animal, sometimes in extreme case, sometimes they even take out human life. So Suttanta asked about, is there any way to continue commit religious ritual, but with less trouble and bloodless? And then the Buddha told him 3 refuges. I told you just before, take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha, and also follow 5 precepts, and also carry on morality, 4 jhana, 8 kinds of higher knowledge. This idea comes back in Adha Sutta again. Okay. Again, one more. Mahali Sutta, the Buddha explained that his disciples practiced a noble life, not to acquire such divine power, but with a view to realization of concentration. Such dhammas are attainment of a 4 state of noble fruition. Okay? So in other words, in Mahali Sutta, one more thing, 8 kinds of higher knowledge. Some of higher knowledge include supernormal power, but Buddha strongly suggests do not practice in order to attain that supernormal power. This supernormal power are naturally accompanied when you engage in morality, then 4 jhanas followed. Then keep practice and you will attain a kind of higher knowledge. Some of them has characteristic of supernormal power, but don't stick to supernormal power. Just keep practice. But some samanas and brahmanas, they pursue achieving supernormal power. They ignore practice morality, meditation, jhana, and then they ignore those practice and only try to gain supernormal power. That is wrong view. That was expounded in Mahali Sutta. Okay, and then when practitioner follow Noble Eightfold Path, the practitioner will experience for jhana followed by 8 kinds of higher knowledge. In order to do that, human life have a 4 states of noble fruition. 4 states of noble fruition means stream entrance. When practitioner decide to, okay, I will take the path of morality, meditation, concentration, and knowledge. When you take that noble eightfold path, we call that practitioner stream entrance. That is the first state of noble fruition. This stream entrance continue to practice, and then this practitioner is going to come back to this world only one time. We call that once returner. Once this practitioner come back to this human world and then continue practice morality, samadhi, meditation, and achieving high knowledge, then this practitioner will not come back to this world. We call this a non-returner. That is the non-returner is the 3rd state of noble fruition. And this practitioner even does not come back to this world, continue to practice this mental state, and then the state of mind achieve at Arahant. That is the 4th state of noble fruition. So first state of noble fruition is a stream entrance. 2nd state of noble fruition is once returner. 3rd, a non-returner. The 4th, the last state of noble fruition is Arahant. When practitioner work hard, then the practitioner will pass through this 4 state of noble fruition, Okay, each state keep practicing eightfold path. Continue in Silakkhanda Vagga, and in Maha Sutta, the Buddha explained the futility of extreme self-mortification. Do you remember? Samanas, they self-mortified. They kind of torture themselves and to get some supernormal power. When a recluse practice to become accomplished in morality, concentration, and knowledge, and also cultivate loving kindness and dwell in the emancipation of mind, he would be entitled to be called a samana and brahmanas. In Potthapada Sutta, the Buddha expounded on the practices consisting of observance of sila and development of a concentration, which results in arising and ceasing of a successive jhana. Jhana means some advanced mental state. When you are well equipped with morality, sila, that provides strong foundation, then you continue to follow Noble Eightfold Path. Then practice concentration by meditation, then you will experience some advanced mental state. We call that jhana. Okay. And then from the jhana, you will achieve, you will attain wisdom or knowledge. Okay? So the meditator progresses from one stage to the next in sequence until the practitioner achieves the cessation of all forms of consciousness. I told you there are 13 suttas in Silakkhanda Vagga, and the 10th one is Subha Sutta. Subha Sutta was given by one of Buddha's disciple, Ananda, because the Buddha had passed away by then. And Ananda also delivered Buddha's message, emphasizing for the three aggregates of Dhamma, such as the aggregate of morality, the aggregate of concentration, and the aggregate of knowledge. Buddha urged people to practice these Dhammas, dwell in three aggregates, such as Sila, morality, concentration, and wisdom, and have them firmly established. In Kevada Sutta, the Buddha expounded the miracle of the power of teaching, such as the practice in morality, concentration, and knowledge, leading finally to the extinction of defilement. Okay? So, Samanas and Brahmanas, they think that the real value is somewhere else. And then when some practitioners show just paranormal power, they think that that is really truth. But Buddha emphasized that the miracle of power lies in morality, concentration, and knowledge. Nothing else. In Lohika Sutta lays down the types of blameworthy teacher and praiseworthy teacher depending on the accomplishment of the practice of morality, concentration, and knowledge. If some master or a teacher already practice morality, concentration, and knowledge, and once they accomplish these three aggregates of practice, and then teach his pupils, then those teachers regarded as praiseworthy teacher. If the teacher, some master, do not follow the Noble Eightfold Path and then try to teach his pupils, those teachers can be regarded as blameworthy teachers. Okay? So teachers need to know, to teach his pupil, but what kind of practice these teachers already done, accomplished, and then they already have some, fruit. Fruit means they already experience this morality, sila, morality, and samadhi, concentration, and panya, and wisdom. Without that kind of strong accomplishment, just teaching his students, those teachers can be regarded as blameworthy teacher. Okay, that was the first subdivision of Digha Nikaya. This was Silakkhanda Vagga. The second division is Maha Vagga. Maha Vagga, there are 10 suttas in this division, and this Maha Vagga is very famous. Some suttas is very important, and some suttas in Maha Vagga deal with historical and biographical aspect of Buddhism. So if you look at the first Mahapadana Sutta, Mahapadana Sutta deals with brief account of the last 7 Buddhas and the life story of Vipassi Buddha. The last 7 Buddhas means before Gautama Siddhartha, there were 7 Buddhas in the past. And Mahapadana Sutta introduced those last 7 Buddhas. So if you are interested, you can choose this sutta and then you read and then you can keep exploring. The second, Maha Nidana Sutta explains the chain of cause and effect. If we ask to Westerner, what is the philosophy of Buddhism to Westerner, their answer is causality, the chain of cause and effect. So that causality, the principle of causality were expounded in Maha Nidana Sutta. Among Mahavagga, the most famous sutta is the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. This Mahaparinibbana Sutta gives an account of the last days and passing away of the Buddha. So right before the Buddha passed away, the Buddha expounded many sermons. Those all compiled in Mahaparinibbana Sutta. It's kind of long, but it's really important. And then what kind of a message the Buddha left us right before he left this world. Also, one of our famous sutta named Mahasatipatthana Sutta, very famous. Mahasatipatthana Sutta deals with the 4 methods of steadfast mindfulness and the practical aspect of Buddhist meditation. There are several kinds of meditation in Buddhism. And this Mahasatipatthana Sutta introduces one kind of meditation practice based on mindfulness. And then they also elaborate 4 kinds of method to cultivate mindfulness. Very important. Next week, you will study Majjhima Nikaya. In Majjhima Nikaya, there is one sutra named Satipatthana Sutta. The content is similar to Mahasatipatthana Sutta, but in Digha Nikaya, the length of sutta is longer than length of sutta in other Nikaya. Therefore, this Mahasatipatthana Sutta elaborates a little bit more detail than Satipatthana Sutta, and then they put Maha, the word Maha, in front of Satipatthana Sutta. Maha means great and big, right? So you have Mahasatipatthana Sutta in Digha Nikaya, but you have Satipatthana Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya. But both sutta explain 4 methods to cultivate mindfulness. And then this is, so Mahasatipatthana Sutta and then Satipatthana Sutta deals with Buddhist meditation. Excuse me. And if you look at the Mahavagga, the 10 suttas in Mahavagga, can you see there's Brahma addresses the God, and Deva comes to see the Buddha, or God consult the Buddha. Okay, so you can see some God naming appear here. So as you see the word God or Deva in Mahavagga, 31 realms were introduced in Mahavagga. What is the meaning of 31 realms or 31 spheres? So you live in human realm, right? But there's other realm, there's other sphere, okay? And in other sphere, there's some being exists in other sphere, okay? Those 31 realms or 31 spheres were introduced in Mahavagga. And also what kind of a being will be reborn in one of 31 other. So it's kinds of a cosmology, right? The Buddhism is not only limited to human realm. In addition to human realm, there is other sphere, 31 total, 31 realm, 31 sphere. And then what kind of a being, what kind of a God, what kind of a diva, they exist in each realm. And then they sometimes come down to the human world and then try to meet and consult with Buddha. Okay, so you see the word God or diva. And then if you just to look at the title, the doctrinal aspect of Buddhism, you can find, for example, causality, rebirth, significance of meditation in the course of morality, concentration, and knowledge. Okay, so you already saw Silakkhanda Vagga and then Maha Vagga, and then already you have many sutta. You are seeing the title, and if you try to read all these sutta, that will be wonderful. But it is not the amount of reading is not small. So you just screen the title, and then just look at the what kind of question the diva come to see the Buddha and ask what kind of question, and then how we can cultivate mindfulness. What is the meaning of mindfulness? Okay, how mindfulness is related to meditation practice. If you are curious about that, then definitely you will choose Maha Sutta and decide to read. And if you try to read all Sutra, and that will be great, but it might be too much to students. So you just screen the title and then choose one or two, okay? And then try to read each sutta. And probably each sutta starts with, thus have I heard. And then after that, some location immediately appear where this sutta has a setup. In other words, thus have I heard. And then the Buddha stay in this group, and then some samanas visit, and then they start to argue. And then so the thus have I heard followed by the name of a site or location. And then it provides the background, and then move to what is the main issue of that sutta. So you just screen the title of sutta and then choose one or two and start to read. And then if you like that, you can choose those sutra for your research topic. Or if you think that, the Digha Nikaya, the length is too long, and then you might wait until next week. And next week, I will introduce a little bit shorter sutta from Majjhima Nikaya. Okay, and so it's up to you. But in second division of Digha Nikaya, Mahavagga, there are very important suttas grouped into Mahavagga. For example, Mahasatipatthana Sutta, Mahaparinibbana Sutta, and then Mahapadana Sutta, Mahanidana Sutta. Okay? And then the rest of sutta also is important too. Okay? And the last subdivision of Digha Nikaya is Paticca-Vagga. Paticca-Vagga is made up of 11 short discourses of miscellaneous nature. Paticca deal with the Buddha's rejection of a wrong view and severe asceticism practiced by followers of many other religious sects. Also, Paticca deals with the periodical evolution and dissolution of the universe. And if, especially if you look at in Silakkhanda Sutta here, the marks of great men, the 32 kinds of a mark of the Buddha were described. And then when you read the 32 kinds of a mark of the Buddha, sometimes it does not make sense. How come people have that kind of posture, okay? But maybe that description includes some metaphysical sense or metaphysical imagination. But when you read these 32 physical marks of the Buddha and described in Silakkhanda Sutta, it's quite different from the appearance of a human being, ordinary human being. Also, if you look at Singala Sutta addressed to a young Brahmin showing the duties to be performed by members of the human society. So what is the best way to live as a human, right, in the society? So this kind of a teaching for more to the lay people than the monastic. And the last Samhiti Sutta and Dastara Sutta are given by one of Buddha's disciples, Venerable Sariputta. So sometimes Sariputta, Buddha's disciple, provides give a sermon to the practitioner or lay follower. Mostly the Buddha is found, but exceptionally his venerable disciples provide sutta too. Okay, these Samhiti Sutta and Dastara Sutta were given by the Venerable Sariputta. These two sutta contains a list of doctrinal terms classified according to the subject matter and numerical unit. So these last two suttas are a little bit different in terms of style of their composition. Okay, it's not a long description, but it is more like a different format of the style of their composition, and also provided by Venerable Sariputta, not by the Buddha. So briefly, we overview each sutra pertaining to Digha Nikaya. And if you look at if you think about the underlying doctrinal aspect of Digha Nikaya, you might pull out these principles. The Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path. So think about that. What are 8 kinds of behavior or guideline? And these Noble Eightfold Path can be categorized into Sila, concentration, Samadhi, knowledge, Panya. So morality, Samadhi, Panya. Okay, according to 8 kinds of practice. These 8 kinds of practice, some of them is cultivating, I'm sorry, my voice is some of 8 kinds of practice corroborate, maybe not corroborate, strength or cultivate sila. Some of Eightfold Path is more directly engaged in cultivating concentration. And throughout this Eightfold Pathway, the practice through following Eightfold Pathway, eventually you will reach knowledge, panya. So what kind of eightfold path more directly related to sila? Which one directly related to panya? So these eightfold paths can be categorized into three parts: sila, concentration, knowledge. Think about that. Of course, I will introduce this later in next week lecture, but you also think about that. And then you will hit this noble eightfold path when you read Sutra in Digha Nikaya. Also, you will hit the word Sila, Samadhi, Panya many times when you read Sutra from Digha Nikaya. Also, in order to accomplish Sila, concentration, and knowledge, wisdom, the Buddha emphasized meditation. Meditation. Is meditation the only way to be enlightened? Okay. Now, if not, what else? What else means or method to practitioner get enlightened? And then what is advantage to engage in meditation to be emancipated or achieve entire freedom, moksha, right? So think about that. What is the powerful, tool of meditation? Why the Buddha, even right before his final day, he suggests, don't be lazy, keep practicing. Practice meditation diligently. Causality, the philosophy of Buddhism, can be defined as causality, the principle of cause and effect. Also, when you read several sutras in Digha Nikaya, you will find these three marks, three three seals. We can call it three seals. That is dukkha, dissatisfaction, anicca, impermanence, and anatta, no self. Okay, so everything is dissatisfaction. That's why the life feels you suffer because of dissatisfaction. And then nothing is permanent. Good time and bad time, they cannot be forever. So it goes away, fly away. So nothing is forever. And no self. This is really a little bit ambiguous, but you are here, you have a self, but what kind of self really means? Okay, so these three marks will appear even this early Theravada Buddhism moved to out of Indian continent and then developed into belonging to Mahayana Buddhism. These three marks continue to present, and then maybe a little bit add up more marks such as suchness, nothingness, or sunyata, like that. And then you will also you will have a chance to read 12 links of a chain of dependent origination from Digha Nikaya. And I explained to you there's some beings exist in different spheres. And then those are 31 realms or 31 spheres. And then 31 kinds of beings, they can reborn in one of 31 realms depending on the practice level. So this is dealing with cosmology. Okay? And then in Digha Nikaya, you might find 31 realms, but if you read Abhidhamma or Vistimagga, the number of realms is a little bit changed, 32, 34, something like that. But at least you will have this kind of cosmology, 12 link of a chain of dependent origination. There are three marks, three signs. What kind of sign? Life is dissatisfaction, dukkha. Nothing is forever, impermanence, anicca. No self, no ego self, no self, anatta. These three signs you will hit, you will meet these expressions when you read some sutta of Digha Nikaya. And also you will read causality, you will find the significance of meditation, and then this Noble Eightfold Path will come back when you study Majjhima Nikaya. And then this Eightfold Path is gonna sort of categorize into Sila, concentration, Samadhi, and Panya, knowledge. And then the Sila is kind of more like a beginning position, morality. So keeping good moral behavior, moral, speaking, moral thought, that is very important. That really facilitates your spiritual progress, move smooth to Samadhi, and then followed by reaching wisdom. So these kinds of doctrinal aspect you can find when you read some sutra from Digha Nikaya. And then some doctrine, Buddhist doctrine will come back when you study Majjhima Nikaya, or even Samyutta Nikaya or Anguttara Nikaya. But sometimes a little bit more elaborate, more detail, emphasize maybe cosmology. Some Nikaya is going to more repeatedly, focus on meditation practice. Okay, so those things you will study next time. And then this is the end of today's lecture. And then if I suggest you to read for next week, I suggest you to find the book, The Middle-Length Discourse of the Buddha, translated by Piku Bodhi. You can find that literature from internet access, and then they provide electronic page, so you can read those books, not entire book, so partially you can read some portion of the book electronically. So I suggest you to read the introduction of the Middle-Length Discourse of the Buddha for next lecture. So far, you do not have any homework, but try to think that, as I said, choose one or two sutta from any Nikaya. Today, you listen to Digha Nikaya and none of sutta attracts you. Maybe you can wait next week, Majjhima Nikaya. Maybe, it works the same way to you. Maybe the following week, Samyutta Nikaya or Anguttara Nikaya. Maybe some students might be interested in Abhidhamma or Visuddhimagga. But once you complete these 5 kinds of Nikaya, then at the time, at least you need to have 1 or 2 sutra, your favorable sutra. So you want to read those sutra and then try to find how these sutra is going to change it when early Theravada Buddhism move out of India to arrive at Tibet, China, or South Asia. And then these sutra maintain the doctrinal aspect of Buddhism, or those sutra might be a little bit changes in terms of interpretation because the specific region or specific country at the government, they have different social value. Okay, so think about this, and then if you have any question, please send me email to ask more question. So today's lecture is for overviewing the Digha Nikaya. Thank you very much.